Hello there, and thank you so much for tuning in to Town Meeting TV's coverage of Town Meeting Day 2025. My name is Emily Brewer. I'll be moderating the discussion tonight. This program is part of a series of candidate forums hosted by Town Meeting TV in advance of the Town Meeting Day election on March 4th, 2025. These forums are made possible by Town Meeting TV's generous underwriting partners. You can find all of our forums at cctv.org/TMD2025 or on our Town Meeting TV YouTube channel, where auto-generated captions are available. If you're tuning in on YouTube, click the subscribe button to stay tuned into local democracy this election season. On tonight's program, we will hear from Mark Barlow, who is the incumbent candidate running to continue his time on the Burlington City Council representing the North District. Thank you for being here, Mark.
Thank you for having me, Emily, and thank you for Town Meeting TV for putting this on.
Absolutely. This is our favorite part of the year. So we have prepared a list of questions for you. Like I mentioned before, around 90 seconds for answers, but because it's just a discussion between you and I, it's pretty much neither here nor there. But we do welcome questions from callers in the audience. You can call in at 802-862-3966 for any questions for Mark, and we will prioritize that question. With that being said, we will get started with a opening statement. So Mark, what do you love about Burlington, and why do you want to continue to serve as a city councilor?
Well, I've lived in Burlington about 50 years. I moved here when I was in middle school. I grew up here. I attended Burlington schools. I went to UVM. I worked in a number of local businesses before starting my own back at the beginning of like 2000, I think. I've been really involved and engaged for about 16 years. I started with doing volunteer work in a local park, doing cleanup activities and organizing green up days there, and then got involved and got onto the school board for 2 terms, from 15 to 19, and then got off of that, was involved in the Parks Commission for about a year and a half, and then I ran for city council. And so I've been on the city council for almost 2 terms now. And I guess I love Burlington. I've made it my home. I'm committed to staying here. And I often tell people, if you don't like what they are doing, you can complain, you can move, or you can do something about it and get engaged and get involved. So that's sort of the course that I've chosen for me.
Yeah, it's pretty clear that you have definitely gotten involved over the years. So thank you for being here tonight. I think it's important that even though when seats are uncontested, coming in and taking the time to share your views on issues that are important to the community in a way that's accessible for folks. So that being said, we'll move on into our list of questions here. And the first one has to do with city finances. So as a councilor, you will be asked to vote on the city's budget. What perspective do you bring to the overall financial management of the city?
Well, I think this will be my 4th city budget, and again, I've worked on the school budgets as well because I was on the school board, and I currently serve on the city's Board of Finance, which is the mayor and 4 councilors the 4 councilors are elected by the city council, and so I've served on that for almost 2 years, and you get a little bit more exposure to the details of the budget there. You know, one of the things that I've been worried about this year is that we have a structural budget gap in our general fund budget. We're not sure how big yet, but I expect it's multiple millions of dollars. And so, you know, we had one last year. I think it was about 10 million, and you know, we had to close that. And there was a number of measures taken, but there's revenues raised. A little bit of cost savings, a little bit of vacancies being held open. But we're going to have those same challenges this year, and what I'm worried about is that we're going to have to make some hard choices in the community about how to close the budget gap without really overtaxing people with new revenue. And so I'm hoping that we can do the hard work that we're going to have to do around finding operational and organizational efficiencies. The one good thing is we begun that work. The mayor has an initiative that she's called Modern Gov, and I believe we're getting a presentation on where that initiative is at, and on a view of where the budget's at our February 10th meeting, I think.
Okay. And so you have, this is your, this would be your third term as city councilor. How long have you been on the Board of Finance?
For 2 years.
Gotcha, okay. And, you know, speaking of finances and budgets, and this is also something you have familiarity with, it's the school budget. So Burlington School District administrators have proposed a $135 million school budget, which is a $10 million decrease from last year's budget, resulting in a property tax decrease. Do you support this budget, and why or why not?
I do support the budget. I think the school district's done real admirable work this year and in recent years. When I had first gotten on the school board, the school district had been overspending their budget in 7 of the prior 10 budget years then, and they've done a lot of hard work to hone their budgeting process. They budget based on need. They don't build their budget entirely from the ground up, but I think they evaluate, you know, where the need is in the schools and where they have equity measures that they build into that as well. And they do a really excellent job of bringing in those budgets, staying on budget, and running small surpluses every year too, which is also important and a sign of a healthy budget. This year, I'm really excited that I think they're looking at a 4% rate decrease. Some of that because of that good stewardship of school district money, but also because they've done a lot of good advocacy work in the legislature to change the way pupil weightings are calculated so that it has better recognition of some of the unique expenses we have in Burlington, especially around English language learners. So that's helped to bring the rate down this year as well. Okay,
great. And continuing with things that voters will see on their ballots this March, the city has several charter changes and a couple of bonds that community members will be voting on. What is your position on those items that voters will see on their ballot?
Well, I support all of them, some with some caveats. So the general obligation capital bond, I think we need this because of the bonding that we did for the high school as a community. We haven't had a lot of capacity in the city for capital improvements. We basically maxed out the credit card with the high school. Something people may or may not know is that the district and the city share what's called overlapping debt. They have a memorandum of understanding on how they'll keep that, how they'll divide that debt up, but also we have how they'll adhere to the debt policy. And the debt policy says we can't spend more than 4% of our grand list on overlapping debt between the district and the city. So we haven't had the ability to do any some of the capital improvements that we would normally do on an ongoing basis. We haven't been able to replace vehicles in our city's fleet on the schedules that we would like to, and we're behind on sidewalks and road paving as well. So this will help us to get back on track a little bit. So I support that one. The water bond I support. The lake bond started out really huge, like I think it was over $200 million. And we've been able to get the water division to to phase that project, so it's only $152 million, which is going to be more manageable. And then we've also asked for certain check-ins along the design and contracting phase, as well as asking them to try to do other things to contain the cost. One is it's called a construction manager at risk model, and to continue to look for other funding sources. So I support that. And on the three charter changes, I support those. I voted to put those on the ballot. The guns and bars charter change, as it's called, I support, but I recognize it has challenges in the legislature. I also know that the state has a very similar bill that's being introduced, and that is a measure that would probably be more appropriately handled at the state level than by our city, but I still support it.
Okay. Thank you, Mark. And then switching gears a little bit here, what are your top priorities in seeking to continue to serve on the City Council?
Well, you know, I don't know if you remember, but back in the 90s and even in the 2000s, Burlington was always looked to as one of the most livable cities in the country. We had a national reputation as one of the best small cities in the country. And, you know, we don't have that anymore. We find ourselves often in the national news for the problems that we have. So, you know, my North Star, my guiding sort of overarching priority is to do whatever we need to do in city government to sort of to reclaim that reputation that we had.
Sure.
You know, we have a lot of problems in the downtown, as everybody knows, and we have increased crime. We have, you know, substance use disorder, rampant substance use disorder. We have mental health issues and homelessness in the downtown, and we need to tackle that. And one of the things that we need to do is we need to hire more police officers to enforce some of the laws that we have on our books. So that's a priority of mine. But also, you know, I think we need to address affordability. You know, people can't, even people that want to move here or want to stay and live here can't afford to. So we need to work on making sure that the tax burdens for those folks and even the rate burdens, if you're a water or electric utility payer, are affordable, and that we build more housing of all kinds. So we should focus on policies that allow those things to happen.
Okay, great. And you did mention an increase in crime as well as police, which leads us directly into our next question around policing. So what qualities are you going to look for in a new police chief for the city? And what do you think about eliminating the police hiring cap?
Well, first I want to thank Chief Murad for his service and his commitment to our community. I hope we can find someone as capable as Chief Murad. I'm sorry to see him leave, and we'll have to see what the search brings. My understanding is that we'll get more of an update on the search at our meeting on the 18th. Okay. So I look forward to hearing more about that. But I do hope that we can find someone as accomplished as him. I did support the removal of the cap. I would have never voted to put the cap in place. But nevertheless, we had the cap. I did also move to raise the cap from, I think 74 was the original cap, to the 87 where it's at now, when we could, I think in my second year on the council. We asked the chief to go in and give us a report on what the constraints were to recruitment and what the cap should be. And he told us, and we've heard from the union, that the 87 number is an impediment to recruitment. Mm-hmm. So removing the cap doesn't cost a thing, and it removes that impediment. So it's a no-brainer to me that we should remove it. The other thing I'll note is that other departments, they don't have caps. Their size is determined by the budgets that they put forward and the council approval of the positions that they need. And so the police department shouldn't be any different than the other departments in the city.
All right, thank you, Mark. And we are getting close to the end here already, but I want to try to get through a couple more questions.
Okay. Sorry, if I'm taking too long to answer.
No need to be sorry. We always have too many questions than what we have time for. But this next one has to do with civil rights. And so given efforts by the new presidential administration to end diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts, eliminate protections for transgender people, and reduce immigration, what do you think is the city's role in continuing to address inequities and counteract discrimination in all forms?
Well, I think we should continue our commitments for equity and against discrimination. We should support those who feel threatened by the White House action on immigration. And I agree with the mayor and thanked her for her Friday communication on the ICE activity in the region, I guess. There's still a lot of uncertainty. We don't know how things are going to pan out, but we all need to stick together as a community on this one.
Great, thank you. And So this next one has to do with connecting with your constituents. So as a candidate and an elected official, how do you gather input and balance differing perspectives from your constituents? And then as a follow-up to that, how do you communicate with non-English speaking constituents?
Well, as a city councilor, I get a lot of email, and I try to reach out to folks who mail me, and I often will ask them to meet in person. And I especially like to talk to the people that don't agree with my positions or the votes that I've taken. So I tend to do that to try to build, you know, a broader sort of perspective on any issue. I've recently, I took an F-35 vote where I was the only person on the council to vote against trying to reopen the basing of the F-35 here. Mm-hmm. I had a constituent reach out to me and express her dissatisfaction with that vote and asked me to contact some of the folks who were in the anti-F-35 movement, which I did. And I actually had a very nice conversation with Roseanne Greco at her house on this. So I tend to like to engage that way, but I also will often hold like office hours or individual meetings at a local bagel shop in my district. So.
Right. And when we get to our closing statements, I'll have you share how folks can get in touch with you. Okay. But this next question has to do with housing and emergency shelter. So city data, as well as anecdotal evidence, tells us that there continues to be a population of Burlington residents living in tents or makeshift shelters. What role does the city play in meeting this challenge?
Well, I think the city has stepped up and to meet the challenge. You know, it's obviously, it's a problem that continues to plague us. It is something that state action has tended to worsen over the last 2 years, I would say. But Burlington's doing its part. We have, I think, over 80% of the shelter beds in the whole county. And what I would like to see is other communities stepping up and taking and shouldering part of that burden. And I'm hopeful that the legislature will try to regionalize the response, so it's not just on Burlington to manage this awful crisis that we're in.
Sure, absolutely. And we're running out of time here, so I'm going to skip down to the last question, which has to do with there being a new mayor for the city of Burlington. So what are your thoughts on the new administration under Mayor Mulvaney Stanek, and how have you worked with the mayor to meet the needs of the city, residents, visitors, and businesses, and then how will you continue when you are reelected?
Well, you know,
evening at 7 p.m. Thank you again for watching and sharing Town Meeting TV. Have a great night.